Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Atlanta, a city known for its dynamism but also for its social tensions. Night was falling on the West End neighborhood, a mix of quiet residences and sometimes dangerous streets. The streetlights trembled in the cold November wind, casting ominous shadows on the sidewalks. In a small red brick house, FBI Special Agent Michael Sanders was reviewing his files late one evening. Michael's life was rigid and orderly: work, family, physical training. But his greatest treasure was his only son, Jordan Sanders. At 22, Jordan was a computer science student, a bright, sensitive, and loving young man. Michael was proud of his son, who embodied the future and hope of his family. That evening, Jordan was out with two of his friends, Tyler Brooks and Marcus Hill, to celebrate the end of their college exams. They laughed, talked about future plans, and shared dreams that only youth can indulge in. But fate had other plans. A few blocks away, a police patrol consisting of Derek Lawson and Carl Jenkins, two officers known for their racial bias, was monitoring the neighborhood. An anonymous tip reporting a suspicious group searching cars had mobilized them. Their approach was tense, aggressive, and fueled by a mixture of fear and hatred. When the police officers spotted Jordan and his friends, they saw what they wanted to see: young black men, alone on a dimly lit street, suspects by default. The next few seconds were a mixture of fear, panic, and irreversible decisions. Jordan, taken aback, tried to explain, but Lawson and Jenkins, convinced of an imaginary threat, drew their weapons. In less than 2 minutes, Jordan Sanders' life was extinguished. His friends screamed, paralyzed by fear and pain, while the police officers stood frozen, aware too late of the horror they had just committed. Miles away, Michael Sanders continued his work, unaware that the world had just turned upside down. He didn't yet know that this night would destroy his life, call into question everything he believed in about safety and justice, and reveal a tragic secret: the son he loved had been killed by men who had never bothered to get to know him. This tragedy would not only shatter a family, but also trigger a federal investigation that would shake Atlanta and expose the deep cracks in its police system. Night had fallen on the West End, and the streetlights cast flickering glare on the asphalt. Jordan Sanders and his friends, Tyler Brooks and Marcus Hill, were still laughing at their jokes as they crossed the parking lot of an abandoned mall after a college game. The air was cool, thick with the tension that only nighttime neighborhoods know. "Do you think we should go home now?" asked Marcus, glancing nervously around the dark cars. "Relax, man," Jordan replied with a smile. "We didn't do anything wrong. We can just enjoy ourselves for 5 more minutes." But just a few blocks away, Derek Lawson and Carl Jenkins had just received a call. A panicked voice reported a group of young suspects searching cars. Lawson, the older and more rigid of the two, grunted. "It's them again. Always those kids hanging around at night. We'll show them who's boss." Jenkins, more impulsive, nodded. Their patrol car roared down the deserted street. The flashing lights blinked, casting red and blue shadows on the walls of the buildings. When Jordan and his friends saw the police officers, they stopped, confused. "Hey, everything's fine. We didn't do anything," shouted Jordan, raising his hands to show he was harmless. But Lawson wouldn't listen. His gaze was already filled with suspicion and contempt. "Get down from there. Now," he yelled. Jordan took a step back, his heart pounding. Tyler and Marcus froze, terrified. "Calm down. We're not doing anything wrong," pleaded Jordan. But the next few seconds were chaos. Jenkins, nervous, stumbled slightly and thought Jordan was about to pull out a gun. Without thinking, he fired. Lawson, seized by panic, followed suit. Gunshots echoed through the night. Jordan fell to the ground, his face contorted with pain and shock. Tyler screamed, trying to shield his friend, while Marcus rushed to call for help. Lawson and Jenkins froze, breathless, realizing too late what they had just done. Jordan Sanders, the bright young man loved by all, was dead, a victim of prejudice and a tragic mistake. In the patrol car, the silence was heavy. Neither of the two police officers dared to speak. They had eliminated an innocent man, but they still didn't know who they had just killed. The following morning, Michael Sanders sat in his FBI office, surrounded by files and reports. The air was thick with an unusual tension. He had spent a sleepless night reviewing ongoing investigations, unaware that his personal life was about to change forever. His phone rang suddenly. The name displayed was unfamiliar, a local officer from the Atlanta Police Department. "Mr. Sanders," said the trembling voice. "We have a situation, your son, Jordan." The world seemed to stop for Michael. "What are you saying?" he asked, his voice tight with anguish. "He was involved in an armed incident with the police last night." "I'm sorry, he died at the scene." Michael felt his heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. His hands trembled as he collapsed into his chair, unable to believe what he had just heard. Jordan, his son, dead. The FBI immediately launched an internal investigation. Michael, despite his pain, knew he had to act. He demanded all the details, the surveillance videos, witness reports, the identities of the officers involved. Shortly after, he saw the faces of the two officers responsible, Derek Lawson and Carl Jenkins. Two men whose reputation for racism was no secret to the city. Michael felt a cold anger rising within him. How could they have done this, and not know they had killed the son of a respected federal agent? Jordan's friends were questioned. Their testimonies were consistent. Jordan had never threatened anyone. Security camera footage showed a frightened young man, raising his hands, trying to reason with the police officers. Every detail confirmed Jordan's innocence and the officers' complete irresponsibility. Michael knew the fight for justice wouldn't be easy. The local police were trying to downplay the incident, talking about resistance and a perceived threat. But FBI agent Michael Sanders knew he wouldn't let that lie stand. He stood in front of the desk, staring into space. The pain was immense, but his determination was even stronger. He didn't just want justice for his son, he wanted the truth to come out. And above all, he wanted Lawson and Jenkins to pay for what they had done. That night, Michael made a silent promise: no one, not even the police, would be able to escape the consequences of this racist and tragic crime. The following days were a mixture of rage and calculation for Michael Sanders. Every move Lawson and Jenkins made was scrutinized. Every word spoken by the local police was analyzed. The FBI had gathered all the evidence, surveillance videos, testimonies from Jordan's friends, and even the officers' private messages revealing their underlying racism. Michael decided it was time to confront those responsible. He organized a formal meeting, bringing together the two officers and several superiors from the local department, under the watchful eye of the FBI. When Lawson and Jenkins entered the room, they had no idea who was really waiting for them. Their initial arrogance vanished instantly when they saw Michael, his face hard, his eyes burning with suppressed anger. "Gentlemen, sit down," said Michael in an icy voice. The police officers complied, visibly uncomfortable. Michael placed the collected evidence on the table. "Look at these images," he said, showing the video of Jordan raising his hands, trying to protect himself. "Do you see what you've done? You've killed an innocent young man." Lawson tried to answer. "We thought, he..." Michael cut him off abruptly. "You thought? You killed my son, Jordan Sanders. You didn't even know who he was. And you thought it would have no consequences." Jenkins stood up, attempting to defend their version. "We followed a protocol, we thought that he..." Michael slammed his fist on the table. "Think about what you've done. You've destroyed a life, broken a family. The FBI will not remain silent. You will answer to the law." The silence that followed was deafening. All the superiors present understood that the situation was critical. The tension in the room was palpable. The police officers, now vulnerable and terrified, finally realized the magnitude of their mistake. In the days that followed, under pressure from the FBI and mounting media attention, Lawson and Jenkins were immediately suspended. criminal and civil charges were filed. The scandal erupted throughout the city, exposing not only the horror of the act but also the systemic racism within the police department. Michael Sanders, though devastated, felt that a step toward justice had been taken. But the weight of his son's loss remained overwhelming. Every image, every memory of Jordan came back to haunt him. The confrontation had revealed the truth, but it couldn't bring his son back to life. The following weeks were a whirlwind of media and legal activity. Jordan Sanders' story became a national sensation, an innocent young man killed by racist police officers, the son of an FBI agent. The hearings attracted journalists, civil rights activists, and outraged citizens. Derek Lawson and Carl Jenkins, now suspended, were confronted with the reality of their actions. The evidence gathered by the FBI was overwhelming: videos, witness statements, racist messages. The defense attempted to downplay the situation, speaking of perceived fear and errors in judgment, but the judge and jury could not ignore the brutality and injustice of their actions. Michael Sanders, despite his overwhelming grief, attended the hearings. Every detail of the proceedings reminded him of Jordan, his laughter, his curiosity, his kindness. But he knew this was the moment to turn his suffering into justice. "Your Honor," he declared at a key hearing, his voice trembling but firm, "my son was just a young man. He hadn't threatened anyone. But his life was taken by two men who acted with hatred and ignorance. Justice must be served, not only for Jordan, but for every innocent life taken by intolerance." The verdict came down a few weeks later. Lawson and Jenkins were found guilty of involuntary manslaughter and civil rights violations. They were sentenced to long prison terms. This verdict would never bring Jordan back, but it represented a powerful symbol of accountability and justice. For Michael, the pain remained raw. But he decided to channel his grief into action. He created the Jordan Sanders Foundation, dedicated to supporting victims of police violence and promoting racial equality. Educational programs and awareness campaigns were launched, bearing his son's name across the country. Atlanta, too, was transformed by this tragedy. The police department revised its protocols, strengthened anti-bias training, and instituted stricter officer vetting. Jordan's death, while unacceptable and tragic, had triggered a necessary change. Michael stood one evening before his son's grave, the wind blowing gently around him. "I cannot bring you back," he murmured, "but I can ensure that your name and your story serve to protect other lives." The scar in his heart would remain forever, but the memory of Jordan Sanders became a symbol of justice, vigilance, and hope in the face of injustice.